Hello viewers and subscribers, welcome back to another fishing video. Today I'm going to be going over the basic anatomy of a spinning reel and a spinning rod. So, with me here today I have one of my spinning reels, Lou's Tournament reel. It's a very nice reel and it's pretty cheap. I got it at a pretty good price. I would highly recommend this to even intermediate anglers because it is just such a good all-around, all-purpose reel. Use this to fish for pretty much anything besides trout. I mean, you can fish with trout for it, of course, but it is a fairly decent size rod and it's not exactly made for trout. So anyway, that's the rod I have. So I'm going to go over, first of all, the terminology and all the parts, and then I'll explain their functions. So starting from the back, this section here is where the gears are held. We have the crank or handle, this piece right here, crank or handle. We have the crank knob, which is right here. We have the rotor, which is right here, the spins. And we have the spool, which is this whole section. From here to here, this whole section is known as the spool. The line gets spooled on right here, but this whole section is just really known as the spool. Now, this little thing that you see there, it's like a little thing right there, that is the line fastener or line clip. And basically you can put your line in there and just hold it there. If you need to travel anywhere or you're just not ready to set it up yet, you can just keep your line right there so your whole spool doesn't come undone. At the very top we have the drag, and one thing on the back I forgot to mention was this little lever, which can move back and forth. If you have it on the left, you can only spin the crank or handle counterclockwise. As you can see here, only can spin it counterclockwise, and it locks if you try to spin it clockwise. But if you turn this to the right, you can spin it backwards as well. So those are all the different parts on a spinning reel. Pretty basic there. One thing I did forget to mention though was attached to the rotor is the bail or bail arm, which can open and close. To cast, you do have to have it open, thus making a clear path for the line to flow out, and when it's closed you cannot cast. So let's go over the basic functions of all these different parts. So in the back we have the gears, which allow the rotor to spin. We have the crank, as you can see here, the crank or handle. Now this allows the line to be reeled in, of course, and we have the knob here. Now this can be tightened and loosened depending on really how much you use the rod. Really, you know, after much use this can become loose, but you always want it to be tight so that it holds this crank in there pretty good. Because if you have it loose, you know, if it becomes too loose, your actually crank can fall out, and then you have to put it back in and twist this on, if you can even find this piece. That happened to me once, by the way. I didn't check on one of my other rods, or sorry, one of my other reels, the crank knob, and it fell off, and I almost lost it, but I did end up finding it. So that's that part. As you can see, there's screws there, so you can actually get into this little gearbox, and you can actually get in there and you know, clean out the gears, whatever you need to do. So we have this switch here, which again I went over. You can turn it both ways if you turn it to the right. Now if you turn it this way, the line will be turning on the opposite way, and you'll probably get some bird's nests. So it's a good idea to always just keep it to the left. That way, you know, while you're reeling in, you can't accidentally reel in backwards, because that would make a mess of things. Now we have the rotor here, which spins. The bail arm is attached, and if you can see, while I spin this, you'll actually see the spool, as I mentioned before, this section right here is the spool, will move up and down. So if you watch, it moves up and then it comes down. Now why does it do that? Because right here, the line gets strung underneath on this little spot right here, and it spins around. And the reason why this moves up and down, the spool, is so that the line can get put on this little section here evenly. For example, if this spool did not move up and down, then this would just keep spinning and putting line on in one spot, and then you'd get a giant rise in one area and the rest would be all messed up, and that creates many problems. So this moves up and down so that all of the line can get put back onto the spool evenly. As I mentioned before, this is just the line clip, line fastener where you can put the line in. The bail arm has to be open, of course, for you to cast. When it's closed, then that's when you reel in. You can't reel in the line when your bail arm's open, and many reels, if you go to try to spin it, it'll just lock, or some reels will even close. For example, if I open this, if I spin this, open it, and then I go like that, it just closes. You have to exert a little bit of force for that to work though. Now at the very top we have the drag. Now I'm going to make another video on drag and exactly how it works and what it all means, but for now it'll just suffice to say that basically it allows your line to be taken out after a certain amount of pressure or force is exerted on that line. So if you have it tighter, it'll be harder to pull out that line, and if it's looser, it'll be easier to pull out the line. So that's really the basics of a spinning reel. Now, spinning reels come in all different shapes and sizes, some of them with different features, so this is not just an all-around guide for every single spinning reel on the market, obviously, but it is a standard spinning reel and has standard spinning reel functions. So yeah, it's pretty basic really. When you first get one, it can be kind of daunting trying to understand what all the different parts mean. But I hope that this has been a fairly good guide on all the different parts and how they work. Just keep in mind, keep this switch right here to the left so that your reel can't go backwards, or your crank cannot go backwards. Always want to keep this tight on this side, make sure it's tightened up so that your crank doesn't fall out. And make sure too, if you make sure, like say like your line gets snapped up here, okay, make sure that when you restring it up your rod, that you put it underneath the bail arm, because if you open your bail arm like this and then string it up and put it down, your bail arm will spin and the line will be outside of it and it won't be able to reel in. So always keep it, always close it and then put the line underneath the arm. And then if it goes right in this little slot, it'll stay in place and you will be good to go. So those are the basics, the basic anatomy of the spinning reel. Let's move on to the spinning rod. So with me here today I have, for an example, my ugly Stik. It's a medium heavy or medium fast action rod. It's very basic. Basically, for just, if you want to know the basic terminology of a rod, you have the butt end, which is located here. You have the handle, which is right here. Now this is a pretty long handle. I could actually use this with, well, it's like a 1.5. I could use it with one hand or 1.5 hands, so it's pretty long. As opposed to one of my rods here that I have, you can see the handle is much smaller in comparison. But right here, like right after the handle, you have what's called the reel seat, and as you can see, the reel actually gets put in there, and this piece right here can loosen and tighten accordingly so that the rod will actually fit. So when you're putting the rod in, you have to loosen this up and then you have to tighten it down. Now, different rods will have different fasteners. They're not all going to be the same. They won't all look like this. Sometimes they will be in the back. For example, this rod, I have the actual fastener in the back, and that's kind of a more standard look there. You actually have to loosen this little black piece right there, loosen it back, and then you got to tighten it to get the reel to fit in there. So it's not always going to be in the front. It won't always be in the back. You gotta just look, at your rod and see. Next up, we have what's called a hook clip or a lure clip, and you can just hook your lures and or hooks right on there, so that you can just get to it easier, and it's not on your actually eyelets potentially fraying your line. And as we move up, we have the shaft, and then we have the eyelets, which the line goes through. Now, this rod is in 2 pieces because it's a 2-piece rod. Typically, spinning rods will be 2-piece. I have seen some before, though, that aren't. But basically, it makes it easier to, it makes them more portable. And it's a good feature, yeah, for breaking them down and just, you know, because carrying a huge 7-foot rod in your car without it being able to break down into 2 pieces is a little bit absurd. But anyway, next one, the second piece is basically the same. It's just the eyelets get smaller and smaller as you move up. And that little section right there, as you can see, is just a little extension in the rod to make it flexible, a lot more flexible, so that you know, if you suddenly have a anywhere from, you know, maybe like a 4 or 5 pound fish that suddenly grabs on and, you know, yanks it, it's less likely to snap. Just gives a little bit more give and flexibility. So this is a Shakespeare ugly stick, very common rod, very well known, and very great rod here. Many people have it, many people like it. It's a great all-around rod. If you're looking for one, definitely check out the Shakespeare ugly stick. You can get them for 40 bucks. I've seen them for 40 bucks, really good price. But basically, oh yeah, one more thing I meant to mention was this hook clip right here, a lure clip, does not always come with every rod. If you're looking at a rod that's $40, anywhere from 40 to 60, and anywhere upwards from that really should have one, but they don't always come with one. So that is the basic anatomy of a spinning reel and rod. I hope you guys enjoyed that, learned some things, and I hope you found it useful. So as I said before, this is not an all-around guide for every spinning reel and rod, just kind of a basic standard layout. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, found it useful. If you did, please leave a like, very helpful. If you have any questions, comment, and I will respond to you as soon as possible. And do not forget to subscribe if you wish to see more future content that will be coming out. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for watching. Good fishing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.